Bismillah. Now let's see environment, unit 6. So far you have finished unit 5, which was water. Now I want to discuss more about environment. Within environment it is found in every class. Like for example, environment we have class 6, we have class 7, at the same time we have class 8 here. So each and every environment in the unit you see them, they talk about different things. But now in the environment of class 8 we are going to see soil pollution. So we want to define what the pollution means, or what soil pollution means. This is the act of contaminating soil. And contaminating means adding something that can spoil the soil. So far in class 6 we have seen contaminated food, contaminated water. When there is contaminated food, remember the food is full of germs. When there is contaminated water, remember the water is full of germs. Contaminated food, do you know the disease it causes? And contaminated water, it causes another disease. So we are not interested on that. We are interested here, the definition of soil pollution. This is the act of contaminating soil with pollutants. The pollutants means the germs themselves. An example of those pollutants are here: industrial chemical waste, raw sewage, non-biodegradable wastes that cannot be recycled. At the same time, we have example of those non-biodegradable wastes are plastic, rubber, glass, and bullet and papers. Those are good examples of non-biodegradable wastes. So these are examples of pollutants. When we define in terms of grammar, pollutants are noun. These are nouns. Why are they nouns? Because they are names. Pollution, when we say, is the process by which the pollutant is always pollute the environment. When we define the word pollute, pollutants and pollution. Pollution is the process, pollutants are the nouns, at the same time pollute is a verb. So the process by this pollutants pollute the environment is called pollution. So you need to know the three. One is noun, the other one is verb, the other one is noun. Yes, two are nouns. Pollution and pollutants are nouns. Pollution is the process, pollutants are these things: industrial waste, raw sewage, non-biodegradable wastes. Last examples of those non-biodegradable wastes are rubber, plastic, glass, and bullet and papers. Now, let's go back again. This is the act of contaminating soil with pollutants, adding soil with those things here. When you add those things, for example, a raw sewage into the soil, remember, or non-biodegradable, you are polluting the soil. I hope you understand that one. Good. Now it is making impure. What will happen to the soil when these things are added to the soil? It is making impure by adding toxic substances. Toxic substances are too much of herbicides, too much of excessive use of pesticides, excessive use of fertilizers. Hence, then after all these things happen, the word hence means after all these things happen, after all these things happen, they change the composition of the soil. The composition of the soil means what the soil contains. For example, in class 4, we have seen composition of soil. Soil contains living things, air, water, and what? Humus or organic matter. These are 4 or 5. They go up to 5. Remember, they change the composition of soil, which means 2 of these 5 I'm talking about now will be destroyed. Therefore, the soil becomes fully contaminated. Now, examples of those things that can pollute the environment, the soil, are these. If you add too much industrial wastes, it changes. At the same time, when you add a raw sewage also, you understand the word sewage means, it also changes what? It contaminates the soil. Non-biodegradable wastes, these are also things that can change or contaminate the soil. Example of these biodegradable wastes are plastic, rubber, glass, and bullet and papers. Good. Effects of soil pollution on plants. How does it? If we're going to see one by one. Effects of soil pollution on plants, effects of soil pollution on animals. When the soil is polluted, what will happen to the plants? Effects. The word effect means result. Immediately after the pollution comes, what are the results? Those are the results. What are the outcomes? Those are the outcomes. And what will you observe and see after the soil is polluted? By those pollutants. Then these are the things now. It interferes with the composition of soil, making it less reproductive and infertile. It interferes. It changes the function, the function of the soil. For example, when there is a soil somewhere, remember, it works in a certain way, depending on the type of weather it has. When we have, like, for example, when you go to social study, we have different types of soils. Different types of soils, it grows different types of crops. Like the soil that grows in a maize or the soil that grows in a coffee are different. Therefore, it interferes. The functioning and the activities of the soil is completely interfered, changed with the composition of soil. Then the composition of soil means what the soil contains. Then when all these things happen, it makes less reproductive. The productivity of the soil becomes less and infertile. Sometimes it won't be fertile. Fertile, you understand, when the soil is fertile, even physically you can understand when the soil is fertile. Sometimes, number two, some pollutants suffocate. Suffocate means they will not get a time to breathe out because there are living things in the soil. Because it's one of the components of the soil, living things. The living things which are in the soil suffocate. Useful organisms that are in the soil. Organism means living thing. This scientific word, living thing, is an English word. Organisms in the soil that help in the formation of humus. When these living things are in the soil, they help in the formation of humus. Humus is a decaying matter. When you go back to class 4, definition of humus means decaying matter. When things are decayed, they become humus. So the humus are good for productivity of the soil. At the same time, now, some of the pollutants, waxyaalaha carrada lagu daro pollutants, example soo sheegay, these are nouns, remember. Suffocate, create a scenario whereby the living things couldn't even breathe. At the same time, making the soil that help in the formation of humus. When the things now did not breathe or they are suffocated, they die, making the soil in the formation of humus. Then destroys everything, which means no more humus, because some of the composition of the soil are being destroyed. Number three, excessive use of chemicals. When you use a lot of chemicals, can make it difficult for the plants to grow. Excessive use of chemicals in the soil. What are chemicals now? Chemicals, a good example are these ones. Herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers. When you use more fertilizers, remember, plants will not grow, they may die because you are using excessive. You as a human being, when you take too much food, a lot of food into the stomach, you are taking excessive. You may die for it, or you may fall sick for it. So too much of something is poisonous. It's a wise saying. Good. Excessive use of chemicals can make it difficult for the plants to grow. Polluted soil does not allow proper absorption of water. Remember, when you plant something, the soil absorbs water underground, facilitating the roots to carry dissolved water and mineral salts from the plants then to the tree. Through where? Through the stem. Then it goes to the leaves. So when the soil is polluted, remember, it won't allow proper absorption of water and mineral salts in the soil. Why? Because the soil is contaminated. The soil is polluted. It is added more chemicals. It is added pollutants that can kill the absorption of the water in the soil. Those are effects of soil pollution on plants. The word effect means result. When these things happen, when the soil is polluted, what will happen? These are the effects. When you want to make it A here, it is the affect. Yes, you will be affected. It's different in English now. So the effect means result. Effects of soil pollution on animals. That was plant, now I want to see animals. Animals, what will happen to the animals? Animals, these things will happen. Small organisms, e.g. ants, termites, which are found in the soil. Moles, these are living things, these are rodents. At the same time, earthworms do live in the soil. They die completely. Yes, when you add chemicals, pollutants, excessive use of chemicals, these things always which are found in the soil, they die. So how are they helpful to the soil? Remember, they create a scenario of aeration. It is here in the number 2, aeration, because they breathe. They make the soil to have a lot of air. Now, when the soil has a lot of air, it is one of the components of soil. Air, water, living things, and humus or organic matter. So they make the plants to have air inside. Why? Because they breathe their living things. Okay, they all die because you are adding more chemicals. These animals help in the aeration of soil and formation of humus. Immediately when there is aeration, aeration means scenario of having air in something. Having air somewhere. For example, if I have my pen here, if there is air inside here, aerated, which means there is air inside. So these animals help in the aeration of soil and formation of humus. When they die, they decompose in the soil, making the soil to be fertile. At the same time, when they breathe in the soil, they create scenario of the soil to have air inside the soil, which makes the plants to remain fertile. Chemicals, number 3, chemical substances kill useful animals, thus affecting the productivity of the soil. There are useful animals in the soil. There are useful animals in the soil, which make the soil decompose. When they decompose, so the chemicals you added to the soil kill the animals, affecting, now look at this, affecting, is bringing problem to the productivity of the soil. How the soil produces something. When these 3 things happen, remember, there is a pollution of the soil. Soil has been polluted. Good. Now I want to see conservation of the soil. The word conservation means, soil conservation means using the soil sparingly or wisely. You have the soil sprinkle or wisely. Wisely means in an intelligent way. Sprinkle means little by little, without wasting all the soil. Now let's see soil conservation methods. How do you use? Avoiding excessive use of fertilizers. When you add a lot of use of fertilizers, these are the effects. So far we have seen what will happen to the plant, what will happen to the plant, to the animals. Avoid dumping industrial wastes. The wastes which are from the industries, if you add them a lot, remember, soil also will be polluted. Avoiding panning vegetation cover. Vegetation cover, you understand what vegetation cover means? For example, if there is grass growing somewhere, don't cut that grass because it covers the soil to reduce the rate of evaporation from the rays of the sun, number 1. Number 2, it makes the soil to prevent it from the floods, because when the floods come, they carry all the top fertile soil, hence making the soil to be eroded. Good. Mulching. Mulching means covering the soil with what? With dry leaves or dry grass. Why? Also the same explanation with number 3, making the soil to have or not to be evaporated. When the rays of the sun directly hit the sun, remember it reduces the small amount of water it has, thus making the soil to be evaporated. Cover crops, you cover them. Okay, you cover. Cover crops means the crops you plant, those ones. Vegetation cover means these are natural. Cover crops means you plant. A good example, pea, pumpkins, watermelon, they're always cover the soil, making the soil to remain what? Not evaporated. Terraces means they are found on top of hills, making the soil not to be flooded away, because there are sometimes running of water, floods that comes to the water and carries the top fertile soil. Counterbluffing. Counterbluffing means you plant, you bluff along the slopes. For example, there is a hill here, you have to bluff along the slopes. You plant here. Avoiding now the plant is to be washed away by the falling water from top of the hill. Good. Tree planting. These tree plants also helpful in the winds that carry the top fertile soil not to be washed away by the soil. At the same time, it creates a scenario whereby the soil to have shade, house in a yellow, because the rays of the sun will not hit the soil, thus making the soil to be evaporated. Gabions. Gabions means building. You see, there is a way of protecting even gully erosion. Now you build the gabions, at the same time making the soil not to be eroded, remove the top fertile soil. Lastly but not the least, control grazing and proper stocking. You control grazing. There is a way of controlling grazing. Maybe you have let's say 50 cows. When you have 50 cows making a total of cattle, making a general name of cattle, if you control the grazing method of those, they will graze everywhere, making now finishing where is it? Vegetation cover. When the vegetation cover is being grazed by uncontrolled grazing, remember the soil is polluted, the soil becomes evaporated, losing the water or the moisture in the soil. Proper stocking means having a small number of cattle, small number of camel, small number of goats. Proper stocking is like, for example, you have a small piece of land and you have 5,000 cows. That is overstocking, not proper stocking. Proper stocking means you have to stock or have a number of animals depending on the piece of land you have. I hope this is very easy. Next lesson, we are going to see more about it, inshallah. Have a nice time.